Hello, I'm Pastor Paul Turner. I'm one of the leaders here at the Estuary Church Group, and this is my thought for the day. If anything, the vacuum created by the coronavirus lockdown has highlighted our need to connect with others. It has reinforced the importance of community and human connection. Yvonne and I have both enjoyed the opportunity on a Thursday evening to stand out on our balcony and applaud, along with others in our street, the NHS and other frontline workers for all that they are doing and all the sacrifices they are making. There are even some children opposite, fully entering into the spirit of it all by banging spoons on saucepans. It is a wonderful community moment that is shared again and again all over our nation. We seem to have an inbuilt desire for relationship, and we will find it even in lockdown. I was saddened to read, however, that in one area, a woman who had normally joined in with her neighbours, but on this occasion missed it, found herself judged, publicly named and shamed by her neighbours the very next day. Now, this is surely taking neighbourhood watch to extremes and undermines any real sense of community goodwill. It shows that whilst we might crave relationships with others, it's also one of the areas we struggle with the most. And sometimes our attempts at it can leave us feeling rather hollow. I'm certain the woman I mentioned was both confused and frustrated that she should have been so unfairly judged. I read of another incident where a note was left on a car windscreen this time, and it read, "To the selfish person, I have been watching you travel every day in your car. You are not in uniform, so this is clearly unessential travel. You are part of the problem. Stay at home and protect our country and NHS. You have been reported." Now, in actual reality, the person concerned did in fact work for the NHS and never wore their uniform to and from work. A great example of how easily we can think we are right, make judgments, and then on the basis of those judgments, jump to completely the wrong conclusions, which then puts us at the wrong end of an adversarial position. I am reminded that Jesus said, "Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." I wonder, do you judge others? It's so easy to point the finger, isn't it? But Jesus reminds us here that we need to be careful when we do so, because the measure we use to judge others will be the very same measure used to judge us, which I find a very sobering thought. But what kind of judgment is Jesus talking about here? After all, we all have to make judgments every day, whether we like it or not. They can't all be wrong, can they? And some judgments are absolutely essential. Surely we are told rather to make righteous judgments. So what did Jesus mean? I noticed that he connects judge with condemn. And so it's judging in order to condemn. You know, those moments when we set ourselves up as judge and jury. Never mind 12 good men and true, we have already decided the verdict, and it's guilty. When I was at Bible college, we had to do what was called sermon crit, where we would preach a sermon and then have it critiqued by our peers. And the idea was that it would be a constructive experience, an upbuilding experience. And on the whole, it was. However, there were those whose constructive critique sounded a lot more like an opportunity for them to criticise and pull down. That is, until it was their own turn, and then they expected a little bit more grace than they were willing to give. So it's when we are focused solely on the negative, criticising only to condemn and pronounce guilt, undoubtedly in an attempt to make you look better, In our defence, we will often say, well, it's true, as if that justified our actions. In my experience, gossip is seldom, if ever, true. But true or not, if we are judging and condemning, we're definitely on the wrong side of judge not. Are we not rather to forgive our enemies? The context is always love your neighbour as yourself. Jesus goes on to make a connection between our forgiving and our being forgiven, then between our giving and what is given to us. Someone said, condemning is the product of judging, giving is the product of forgiving. Giving to people you've condemned is proof you're a child of God. Remember the words of Jesus? For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. If we measure out forgiving and giving, we get it back. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. If, on the other hand, we measure out judgment and condemnation, we can expect to get back a lapful of more than we can probably handle. Maybe this would be a good moment for us to think of someone we know who is judgmental and condemning and ask, how's that working out for them? In Luke chapter 6 and verse 41, Jesus continues, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. I can't avoid the picture here of someone coming and asking for help, but can't get the help that they need because they're too busy ducking to avoid my hitting them with a plank. In these unprecedented times, it is time for us to be those who live out the words, freely, freely you have received, freely, freely give. So that as people are reaching out for relationship, we can connect them to the God who is longing to meet with them. Perhaps in these moments when we are tempted to play God by judging others, meditating on the Apostle Paul's words in Romans 12 and verse 3 might help us gain a proper perspective. We read this, for by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. Thank you for listening.